This video presents a decision-making framework for sheet metal and HVAC contractors who are considering making a new market entry decision in the hopes of growing their business. It was developed by the New Horizons Foundation and Arizona State University. Now, when we think about entering a new market, oftentimes we think of the potential positive implications that can come from that decision. Things like long-term profitability or mitigating risks of economic downturns. What we don't always think about is the potential negative. The challenge here is of new market entry decisions, 4 out of 5 result in failure rather than success. Now, what can help with this is having a standardized decision-making process to realize the benefits while mitigating the risks. The challenge here is of the several sheet metal and HVAC contractors that we surveyed, only about 6% actually had a formalized decision-making process. Therefore, we developed this guide so it could be a resource so companies could use it to inform and guide their thought process when considering a new market entry. Before we present it, let's present a little background related to applicability. This will help you determine if the guide may be right for you and your company for your particular market entry decision. Now, if you plan to do the same type of work with the same type of individuals and the same type of location, we don't consider this to be a new market entry, and it may not apply for you. Now, if you plan to do the same type of work, but you want to change where you work or who you work with, this guide may offer some value. Now, if you plan to do something new in your company, but still work with the same individuals or same location, this guide may also offer some value for your process. Now, if you want to do something new with your company in a new location or working with new individuals, we consider this to be very risky, and the guide may not apply for that situation. The other question asked before we move forward is who typically makes these decisions, and what we found is primarily senior personnel within the company will make these decisions. So if that's you, the next question may become, how do you decide if you should enter a new market? Well, we conducted a pretty complex research methodology over several years with several different steps, and while this methodology was a bit complex from a research standpoint, the result was actually a relatively elegant solution. We developed a 3-phase, 10-step process to guide your decision making. The phases include definition, analysis, and planning. And the steps include understand today's company, define the decision, choose decision makers, review experiences of others, lessons learned, assess key factors, identify challenges, determine exit strategy, define action items and timeline, and create implementation strategy. Additionally, you'll notice we've incorporated several decision points throughout this process so you can pause and assess what we're calling a go, no go decision to determine if this market entry still makes sense for your company. So this makes sense from a theoretical standpoint, but how do you actually do each of these steps? Well, we've provided helpful resources to try to guide your thought process. Let's take an example to illustrate this. In step 6, assess key factors, we've essentially gone in and defined the essential 8 decision factors you may want to consider. Now, within each of these, we provide some guidance into things you might consider related to these factors. Let's take 2 as an example. Experience and abilities of champion, number 2, and startup costs, number 6. For experience and abilities of the champion, these are the criteria that we found to be critical for an effective champion to lead this effort. For startup costs, we also provide templates to help guide your thought process, so as you're going through and considering a new market entry, you can consider it, in this case, from a cost perspective. So these types of templates are really intended to help with this step 6, assessing key factors, but the same type of content is developed for all of the steps in the guide. And the hope is that it helps you walk through the process in a simple and orderly manner so you can make a smart decision for your company. So with that, we've got to ask the question, do you want to be the successful 1 in 5 that make a new market entry decision? Well, if so, you'll need to access this content. You can access it online at newhorizonsfoundation.org or at the SMACNA Annual Convention in 2016. And if you're interested in getting training for your chapter, please do send a note to Dr. Munir El-Azmar at Arizona State University for help with this. So with that, we'd like to thank you for your time and leave you with one final thought, and that is to remember that a goal without a plan is just a wish.